You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
In the meantime, we'll call this meeting of the Branford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, May 6th. I have 7:05 p.m. We have a number of public hearings, and I'll ask our secretary to read the notice of public hearing shortly. But just so everyone's informed what the process is for participating in the public hearing is we allow our applicants to present first, applicants and experts to present the application, show the plans, describe what they're up to. We turn it over to the commission and staff to ask questions and to review staff reports. At that point, we'll open it up to the public, and I'm going to ask Evan or Harry to explain the methodology for participating in the public part. After we complete the public part, we will then allow the applicant to respond to any public comments. We may or may not close the public hearing depending on it goes. We have a number of, I think a couple that are continued public hearings as well. With that, for Gary to review the process for participating in public hearings via Zoom.
I'll read that now. Anyone who is joining us and your computer has a microphone for two-way communication. Then during a public hearing, if you wish to speak, press raise your hand in the participant window. Per the governor's executive order, if you speak, you will need to give your name. During public hearings, if you do not wish to speak, you may type your comments into the chat feature. And if you are dialing in by phone during the public hearings and you wish to speak, press *9 to raise your hand. And again, if you wish to speak, you will need to give your name per the governor's executive order.
Great. So I haven't done that. Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, Evan.
Evan Brining, Assistant Planner.
Yeah. So, and also before we read the notice, I keep putting Marcy off. I should introduce members of the commission staff. Commission member John Lust. John, are you here?
John Lust is present.
Joe Chadwick, commission member. Joe, are you here?
Joe Chadwick is present.
Fred Russo, commission member. Fred, you here?
I'm here.
Excellent. Marcy Pelosi. Marcy, are you here?
Marcy's here.
And Massimo Ligure. Massimo, are you here?
Massimo is here.
Also all commission members. And our staff this evening is our town planner, Harry Smith. Harry, you here?
I'm here.
Our assistant planner, Evan Brining. Evan, are you here?
I'm here.
Our clerk recording secretary, Michelle Martin. I am Chuck Anders, the chair. With that, I would ask our secretary, Marcy, to read the notice of public hearing.
The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public hearings to be held on Thursday, May 6, 2021 at 7 p.m. by remote technology as authorized by Executive Orders 7B and 7I to consider the applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the meeting agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Item number 1, application number 21-3.6, special exception for an off-street parking facility, car storage parking lot located at 101 West Main Street. Sound Real Estate LLC, care of Dan Merriam applicant, 101 West Main Street, Branford LLC, care of Jeannie Tank owner. Item number 2, application number 21-3.10, special exception for an accessory apartment located at 28 Pine Tree Drive. Emily Abruzzo, applicant, Gerald John Bodziak and Emily Abruzzo, owners. Item number 3, application number 21-4.2, zoning regulation amendment to amend sections 5.1 or 5.10 and 6.5 regarding parking regulations. Proposed changes available in the Planning and Zoning Department office or the town clerk offices, both at Branford Town Hall, 1019 Main Street, and in the drop box noted below. Planning and Zoning Commission applicant. Item number 4, application number 21-2.6, special exception for a restaurant located at 1136 through 1140 Main Street. Emily Penner Green applicant, Scott Penner owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. A copy of the application materials will be made available at least 24 hours ahead of the meeting at https://www.dropbox.com/home/planning%20%26%20 zoning under the folder for this particular meeting date. Written communication should be submitted via email to p-z@branford-ct.gov by noon of the day before the meeting for posting at the above Dropbox account associated with the town's website.
Chair Candace Chair, thank you, Marcy. With that, we'll turn to our first public hearing on our agenda, items number 1 and 2. That is 56 Stony Creek Road, Inc., care of Lee Small applicant and Faird Stony Creek LLC, Tariq Farad owner. This is application for a special exception grading application and a special exception modification application for the property at 56 Stony Creek Road, otherwise known as the Old Whitewood School. Is the applicant ready to proceed with that?
Yes, Lee Small for the applicant. I'm Lee Small. I'm one of the owners of the Nest Shoreline Campus, which is located at 56 Stony Creek Road, the Old Whitewood School. So what we are doing is this is actually incorporating, since we've now been there for a year, we're building out our final phase of construction. And this site plan incorporates all the things that we have learned over the past year and the items that we'll need to proceed with the new classrooms. We've also determined that we would do a repair/replacement of the existing septic system, which already has been approved by East Shore Health District and Inland Wetlands and is now coming before you for your approval. We are incorporating the new play areas, which will be surrounded by physical barriers for the younger children. These are low, 2.5, 3 foot wood fencing to go with our existing fencing, with gates also made of wood. There'll be some mulched play areas and some grass play areas. We're also incorporating in this plan the landscape plan, final landscape plan, which was previously discussed with zoning. So we've now finalized that and submitted that. Thank you, Evan. So as you can see, these are the physical barriers that go between the play areas. The physical barrier along the, I guess that would be the west property line, leaving the remainder of the area open for the older children. We've created new landscaping, planting some trees throughout the property, along the frontage of the property. And we did notice that the zoning required some street trees in the front of the building. So we are going to incorporate up in the front here some evergreen plantings, which we can review with Harry and Evan at a future date. The site lighting was also a requirement of the zoning approval. So we've provided a site lighting plan with pole lighting. The pole lighting will have complete cutoff so that no lighting is leading onto the adjacent properties, and the lighting around the walkway as well. So we've provided a photometric plan for that. We do plan to remain open during the construction, so the disturbance to the neighbors and abutting properties would be very, very limited. As I said, we will be open. We will set up a silt fence around following the wetland area, and we will only remain within that. Our construction will remain within that area. All materials that will have to be moved will remain on site. The bulk of the materials would be for the septic repair. We have a storage area for that in the front of the parking area here, which will then be reused back on the site. So we don't anticipate any materials leaving the site. And as I said, the disturbance will be very limited. I think that's all I have. If I'm willing to entertain any questions.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Small.
Okay.
Evan, I think you prepared the staff report. Do you want to review that with us?
Sure. Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. Like Mr. Small just described, this proposal consists of the installation of a replacement septic system, as well as a handful of changes to the site plan from a 2019 special exception approval. These include a change in height, addition of new play areas, structures in the fences and fencing around those areas, as well as the addition of a landscaping plan. The septic system would serve the existing two-story building, which is currently a private school or daycare facility. This activity requires a special exception per section 6.8, and the applicant is also seeking approval for modification to a special exception from 2019. The applicant satisfies the bulk requirements of the R4 district. Concerning the grading and earth removal activities, section 6.8C states, while the installation or repair of a septic system is an action that is exempt from the requirements of this section, it is within 100 feet of an inland wetland, and therefore a special exception is required. A landscaping plan was provided by the applicant. No additional clearing is proposed. The front yard landscaping requirements are partially satisfied. There is an existing 420 square foot planting bed and an area marked on the plan as possible future planting bed. These are both located adjacent to the street. However, these are both within the site triangle for each of the entrances. Staff also recommends additional trees be planted in that area in between the parking lot and the street. Further away from the entrances, of course. The side and rear landscaping requirements are satisfied by the existing vegetation, as well as the planting bed requirements are satisfied. Concerning outdoor lighting, we ask that the manufacturer cut sheets of the proposed light fixtures must clearly indicate the fixture's IES cutoff classification and the lamp type and lumen rating. The applicant should provide information regarding the time exterior lighting shall be turned off. No uplighting has been noted on the plan. Based on the application materials, it appears that the special exception criteria has generally been satisfied. Staff recommends 2 conditions. The first of which is prior to the issuance of a zoning permit or the authorization of the issuance of a building permit, the following shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the town planner or his designee. To reduce glare, all all fixtures shall be demonstrated to meet the IES full cutoff definition unless they are emergency lights or very low level accent lights, meaning they are less than 900 lumen output or less than an incandescent 100 watt bulb. The correlated color of the light source for all exterior fixtures, either building or pole mounted, shall be equal to or less than 3000 degrees Kelvin. Changes to the landscaping plan to modify the site triangles of the entrances onto Stony Creek Road as may be determined necessary by the town engineer to achieve adequate site distance and comply with the front yard landscaping requirements of section 3.3 or 6.3. And also the final condition, the conditions of all previous approvals shall remain in full force and effect as that may still apply. Chuck?
Chuck Anderson, Chair. Thank you, Evan. Any questions from commission members before we open it up to the public? Hearing none, then we can open it up to the public. If anyone would like to speak, you can do what Evan tells you to do. Evan, what do they got to do? They can raise their hand or...
Evan Broding, Assistant Town Planner. Anyone that would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function on the participant list. You can also indicate in the chat. And the last effort is to just wave your hand across the screen and I'll try to find you.
Okay, it looks like it's Kate Columbus has a comment, Evan.
Hi, thank you. I would like to encourage the applicant to strongly consider in your landscaping plan, and that information is readily available, and possibly the commission might consider it as a condition that the landscape plan include native plantings and no invasives. Thank you.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Ms. Columbus. Okay, so I think there's a proposed condition of approval that required, some review and possible modification of the landscaping plan. Perhaps, if there's issues there that it could be looked at then. Are there any other members of the public that wish to comment?
I do not see any at this time. Evan Broding, Assistant Town Planner.
Seeing none, we'll turn it back over to the applicant. Any further comments from the applicant? Mr. Small?
Yes, thank you. I have no further comments, just that we will meet those two conditions. We've already submitted, we have ready to submit the modifications to the lighting, and I have the landscape architect working on the landscape conditions. So I think we'll be in good shape there.
Okay. Understood. Thank you, Mr. Small. Any further questions from commission members or staff? Hearing none, then I think we can close items number 1 and 2 as a public hearing. I think this is probably something we can take up later after we complete our public hearing. So thank you, Mr. Small.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
That brings us into items number 3 and 4. This is Stony Creek Estates LLC, 47 Gould Lane. A special exception modification for the residential open space development in the subdivision modification for the open space residential development. This is a matter that we had opened the public hearing, and we had heard from the applicant at the last meeting and its expert. I think the issue concerned, again, this is an open space subdivision, so we're selling subdivision lots. My recollection is that there was it's sort of adjacent to an old industrial area up on whatever the street is. And there was some pollution that may have migrated downward towards this area. And there was some question about the vapors possibly emanating into the households. And they were proposing to, I think, cap it or do something to prevent that from happening. I think the main issue, the reason for continuing this is just having our own environmental person just review what is said and see if we're good with it. So Harry, what's going on with this?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. That is a good synopsis. And the town, as of yesterday, has engaged Mr. Tim Carr, as a licensed environmental professional, to review the testimony presented at the last meeting by the applicant team, and to be in attendance at the May 20th meeting. We did also receive a one-day time extension, which is what we needed, because the 35-day period to have the public hearing ends on May 19th, one day shy of our next meeting, the commission's next meeting. So the applicant has graciously agreed to a one-day time extension to allow continuance to the May 20th meeting. I did discuss with the applicant's attorney, Mr. Herbst, that our licensed environmental professional was just engaged yesterday and is not ready to make any presentation tonight. He said he had nothing further to present, and I suggested that in that case that the commission might continue the public hearing without any further testimony to its meeting on May 20th. He said he would check with his client. I haven't heard back from him. He is well aware of the meeting tonight, and I don't believe he's in attendance. I don't see anyone with a raised hand. So if for some reason he is in, there's someone here identified as 06405, which is probably not him, or Dan. There's a phone number ending in 912. So if any of those folks are representing the applicant and want to speak, I hope they choose to raise their hands. But my understanding is that, upon consultation with his client, he would be fine continuing the hearing without any additional testimony to May 20th.
Chuck Candace here. Thank you, Harry. Any questions from, so I think it sounds like we should just merely reopen and continue this matter to our next meeting. Hopefully in the meantime, our environmental consultant can review the video from the last meeting and get in touch and speak directly with their consultant if they need to, and determine what's needed and where things are, and can report at the next meeting. So any comments from commission members? I don't see that the applicant is asked to speak. So with that, we will continue items number 3 and 4 to our meeting on May 20th. Which brings us then to item number 5, our public hearing. This is 101 West Main Street, special exception for a car storage parking lot. And is the applicant ready to proceed with that? I see Mr. Peretti waving his hand.
Hi, good evening. Jim Peretti, Criscolo Engineering at 420 East Main Street in Branford, representing Sound Real Estate LLC, and Dan Merriam, who I believe is the Dan that is on here tonight. I'm going to share my screen. So the property at 101 West Main Street is at the corner of Rose Hill and West Main Street. It's just a little more than 15,000 square feet. There's an existing building here that I believe has a spa in it. And there's like a garage type building here and some parking in the rear. Right across on the other corner of Rose Hill Road is the Sound Auto facility that we did a few years ago. That quite honestly came out quite nice. But in any event, they are looking to purchase this lot and use it for car storage of vehicles for sale. Basically, what would happen is the existing buildings would be removed. Basically, the area where the buildings are, a little bit more, would be a processed stone yard with a curb at this end so that we can catch the runoff and treat it into some underground galleys. We are including street trees along both sides. And because we were required to do it on the other side of the street and the sidewalk ends right here, We've added the sidewalk in along the road here that will actually connect the two pieces. That's really it. I mean, the limits of this are because we're only allowed to have 60% impervious surface, and we brought it to 60% so they could try to fit as many cars as they can. Again, this isn't intended for a customer to come in and park and take cars out. This would be employees kind of storing cars in here as tightly as they can put them in. Not unlike the two up the street at 333 and 339 West Main Street. We are also providing a couple of lights in the back and in the front. They would be the same full cutoff fixtures that were used recently on the site adjacent across the street. And that's it. In a nutshell, it's just the car storage parking lot, nothing very complicated here. I'll take questions at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Preddy. Checking under share. I think our staff report was also done by Evan. Evan, do you want to review that with us?
I could stop this for you. You're muted.
Thank you, Jim. Evan Browning, Assistant Town Planner. Like Mr. Preddy just stated, this application seeks to demolish the existing commercial buildings and replace it with a car storage parking lot. The existing paved area is to remain, and processed stone is to be added to expand the area that can be used for parking. The project also consists of installation of landscaping, lighting, stormwater control measures, and the extension of the concrete sidewalk along Main Street, West Main Street. The application will meet the bulk requirements, and as Mr. Preddy just said, the impervious surface will be exactly 60%. A landscaping plan was not provided by the applicant. The front yard landscaping requirements were not satisfied. The side and rear landscaping requirements were partially satisfied, along with the parking area landscape requirements that were not satisfied. However, a condition has been suggested by staff that these requirements be met to the satisfaction of the Planning and Zoning Commission or our staff. The applicant has not submitted any lighting information. I know Mr. Preddy just went over that there would be full cutoff. Confirmation that the proposed changes to the lighting proposed conforms to the regulations or will be removed if found to be non-conforming should be submitted. Based on the application materials, it appears that the special exception criteria are generally satisfied. Staff recommends that revised plans addressing the above comments be requested by the commission. However, should the commission choose to approve this application without revised plans, the following findings and conditions are proposed. Finding number 1, subject to compliance with the conditions listed below, the commission finds, based on the testimony and application materials presented, that the proposed use of the property is consistent with the special exception criteria for section 9.8F. We have 2 conditions. Number 1, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit or the authorization of a building permit, the applicant shall install plant beds to satisfy the front and side yard landscaping requirements of section 6.3 to the satisfaction of the Planning and Zoning Commission or its staff, whichever is appropriate. And finally, to reduce glare, all fixtures shall be demonstrated to meet the IES full cutoff definition unless they are emergency lights or very low level accent lights, meaning they are less than 900 lumen output or less than an incandescent 100 watt bulb. Fixed, not adjustable arm mounts shall be used for all fixtures. The correlated color temperature of the light source for all exterior fixtures, either building or pole mounted, shall be equal to or less than 3,000 degrees Kelvin. Information on all building mounted lighting fixtures shall be provided, including cut sheets, with all model choices indicated in an updated photometric plan, including an updated schedule providing information on the different types of fixtures and surface level projections in foot candles that are in compliance with the requirements of the zoning regulations.
Check in, sure. Thank you, Evan. Evan, just a quick question. I know our regulations have front yard and side and rear yard landscaping requirements. This looks like a corner lot. So I assume, what do we have? 2 front yards? How do we characterize that? 2 front yards and 2 side yards, or what? How does that work? Yeah, Evan, or
We didn't get into that. Me and Mr. Preddy had a short discussion about possible landscaping mitigations that could be part of the conditions. He seemed to be open to, adding the landscaping that we suggested. He did, however, point out that the introduction of any trees might affect the cars that are on that lot. And I think me and Harry feel that switching out any shrubs into those landscaping plans would be satisfactory. But concerning the corner lot, I think that entrance on that side street, which is escaping me right now. Rose Hill.
Yeah.
That entrance, I don't know if we could apply the same landscaping requirements as a front yard there. So I would suggest having the side facing the front be considered, or the side facing West Main be considered the front yard landscaping, and then side and rear landscaping requirements for the rest of those property lines.
Chuck in to share. Thank you, Evan. Yeah, I don't know if we, maybe a definitional. I mean, I don't know if we get to say, or if it's already in the regulations. I just didn't know. But any other questions from commission members or before we, or staff before we open up the public?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. The regulations provide for a rear lot line to be parallel to, let's see, basically you get to pick your rear lot. So whichever side yard you want to be your rear yard, basically the other side of the property from that is the front, and the other 2 ones are the side.
Okay, so there's only one front yard.
There's only one front yard here.
Yeah. Okay.
It's really at the discretion of the applicant.
Got it.
So Jim Preddy again. Chuck, if I can just put this plan back on the screen for a second.
Sure.
So, in speaking with Evan, again, when we've done the other car storage parking lots, we weren't required to do the parking island, as you would do in a typical parking lot. But what I said to Evan is maybe it makes sense that we create a sort of a landscape edge here that becomes some sort of maybe a hedge or something similar to that. For a number of reasons, it would kind of defray any headlights from poking out on the West Main Street, and then it'll also soften it up. And I would suggest putting it on these 2 sides here, again, for, in lieu of islands with trees that are going to drop, tree stuff on the cars and things. And then again, with the lighting, we have the cut sheets from what we did across the street, and I'll send those down to Evan tomorrow. That's all I wanted to add.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Brady. Comments, questions from commission members and staff before we open up the public?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I am not completely recalling how the 2 lots, I think they are for Brand Haven. I think at the intersection of Pent Road and West Main. The commission may have granted a modification to the landscaping requirements for those 2 to remove the need for the interior parking lot islands. I know in some of the dealerships, there have been areas that have been designated vehicle storage areas because they were areas where cars were parked, but these were parking spaces, if you will, that were well in excess of the parking required parking spaces in the regulations. So this is not that kind of use. So this is just a parking lot that could frankly be used for some other use. It's not, tied directly to Sound Order, even though it would be owned by it. It could be sold separately. I think what Mr. Purdy's saying makes a lot of sense. I just want to be careful about the mechanism, make sure we're being consistent. That's all. And I just frankly can't recall. I don't know, Mr. Purdy, if you can recall whether we did a landscaping modification for the two. I think there was a lot right at the corner, and then a couple of years later they bought more land and it went further uphill, if you will, of West Main, closer to town. Expanded.
That's correct. And Jim Preddy again, and on that, we did not do the interior islands. What we did do was provide some along the front edge that faced Route 1.
Yep.
We provided some plantings along there.
So I think, mechanically, if that's what the commission wants to do, basically, based on what we did before, then maybe verbally you could request a landscaping modification and we could handle it that way. That as part of this approval, the commission could make a finding that that modification of landscaping requirements is warranted as per, I think it's section 63L.
Okay. Okey doke. Any other questions, comments from staff or commission members before we open up the public? Hearing none, let's open up the public. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment? It looks like we have a number of hands raised. Evan, I'll let you handle these, how we do this.
Sure. I'm just going to go in order that appears on my screen. Evan Browning, Assistant Town Planner, and I'll start with Mr. Keith.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. My name is Rod Keith, and I reside at 3 Lakeview Terrace with my wife Elaine. We're relative newcomers to Branford. We moved here in 1976, which probably classifies us as foreigners still. I have a great deal of admiration for this company in terms of what they've done with that corner down there. I think that it has improved the looks of the neighborhood considerably. I do have some concerns, and they all of them revolve around safety concerns. I know that Mr. Preddy had mentioned that this is going to be a parking lot, and it's not going to be used for parking for customers. I am concerned that there will be some foot traffic with salespeople and potential customers going back and forth across Rose Hill Road. Rose Hill Road is about 25 feet wide. We presently have, I think there are 3 carting companies up at the top of Rose Hill Road who traverse Rose Hill Road many, many times a day. I'm concerned about where car carriers are going to be unloading their cars, whether it's going to be on Rose Hill Road or whether it's going to be on West Main Street. I'm also, excuse me, I'm also concerned that there will be parking on the side of Rose Hill Road. There has been in the past. And I think that could cause a serious problem. The width of carting company trucks and car carriers by themselves don't constitute any real issue, except if they both try to traverse the road at the same time. I'm really more concerned about foot traffic. I realize that people won't be probably parking in there to look at cars, but they may be. It's not reasonable to assume that people will not go back and forth across Rose Hill Road to either look at cars or sign paperwork or take cars in and out of both of those parking lots. I just was curious if anyone had done a traffic study to determine the impact of this particular parking lot being across from another parking lot where cars are going to be moving in and out. Also, there's not a prohibition that I know of for people to park on Rose Hill Road at this particular time. And I can envision a lot of cars parked on both sides of Rose Hill Road down near the intersection of West Main. And I'm looking for some general assurance, I guess, from the folks at Sound Design to let the neighborhood know that we're not going to be involved in traffic jams at the bottom of the hill. Someone being struck going across, from one building or one lot to another. I think you get my drift. I'm not anti-business. Years ago, I was on the Economic Development Commission here in Branford, so I'm not anti-business, but I am concerned. And the only other thing I have is cars coming over from East Haven over that hill. Sometimes they're doing 50, 60 miles an hour. I don't know if they have enough time to stop. So have you considered putting a light at that intersection to maybe preclude that circumstance from happening? That's all for me. Thank you.
Chuck Enders, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Keith. We'll ask Mr. Preddy to address your concerns before we close the public hearing. Who's next? Evan.
Ms. Columbus, once again.
Hi, thank you. Again, I would suggest and hope that the applicant would be choosing native plantings for their foundation plantings in that area. It's very important that we always do that now to protect our environment, and that the commission consider making that a condition of approval. Also, I would like to ask about the crushed gravel, I believe you said it was going to be. And, I think we all know how much paved land there is in Branford right now that is going unused. So it's hard to think about having more pavement and impervious surface being added. Is there any other kind of surface that would be more environmentally friendly, but that would still work for the area, such as grass pavers or some other kinds of pavers? I'm not an engineer. I'm just asking if there are any alternatives that would be more environmentally friendly.
Chuck Enders, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Galamos. We'll ask the applicant to address those concerns regarding native plants and the impervious surface and the type of gravel. Evan, who's next?
Evan Browning, Assistant Town Planner. Once again, I'd like to ask everybody that would like to participate, please use the raise your hand function next to your name in the participant list. But right now, it looks like Eric Anderson is our remaining member of the public that would like to speak. Mr. Anderson?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Anderson. I would like to second Mr. Keith's comment about the general improvement that we saw in the neighborhood when Sound Auto rehabilitated the old Burberry Marina building. It was unused for many years, and seeing it rehabilitated and being put to use is great. I also share his concerns around safety. We have Waste Tech that operates one of the town's transfer stations, maybe for the garbage carting business that they run, as well as a couple other dumpster companies. And what he mentioned about the width of the road is very much one of my concerns as well. If I'm not mistaken, Rose Hill Road is considered a secondary road. We don't have even one yellow line dividing the two halves of our road. And so when the 18-wheeler trucks come up and down from the transfer station, which happen every day, morning, noon, and night, it is something that can cause an obstacle for people and other drivers on the road to get around. Being next to the Sound Auto existing footprint, I've also got concerns about the car carriers in relation to their presence on the road and driving up and down Rose Hill Road, especially when the transfer station trucks are driving up and down, as well as the car carrier trucks blocking residential driveways, which prevents us from getting out onto the road. Again, I'm very complimentary of the improvements to the lot there on the corner, but it has come at a cost of the residential neighborhood that it abuts. And quite frankly, the neighbors that we have at Sound Auto have been less than respectful in many requests that I know close neighbors have made to them. I'd also like to ask if there's been an environmental impact study done or conducted if the Regional Water Authority, which operates the reservoir that is Lake Saltonstall, has been contacted and been allowed to comment on this. While I heard about the containment and stormwater mitigation plans, there is a tremendous amount of paint, metal, rubber, oil, gas, all types of contaminants that come off of cars, even when gently used and properly cared for. And if that's going to be ending up anywhere near our drinking water, I think we should have an environmental impact study that is going to assure us that we're not contaminating the water that we're going to be drinking. So I'll leave it at that. And thank you.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Are there further comments, Evan? Is there any further public comments that you see?
No, not at this time.
Then let's turn it back. I do have a question for Harry. The question about the region notification. Yeah, you're right. There's the other part of Lake Saltonstall, whatever it's called, the other side of it is close by. Was there any notice required to the Regional Water Authority for this application?
I think this is all disturbed area, but I believe the onus is on the applicant. I'm not sure this is in the watershed or not, so I'd have to at the moment. And again, the even Lake Saltonstall, I think, is split. So above the filtration plant, the watershed, of course, is part of the water supply, but below it, I don't think any drinking water is taken out of that watershed, that water that drains into that part of the lake. I don't believe enters into the water supply, but Mr. Preddy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, when we did across the street, we weren't required to, but we did send them something, and they had basically one of those letters that says our comments or we have no comment kind of thing, because it doesn't directly enter the drinking water supply. But I can reach out to Ron Waters and see if he has any comments. Again, I wasn't expecting anything because we didn't get anything on the other side.
Yeah, I know there's something in the statutes that if you're, I don't know what it is, but if you're close to a
Yeah, if you're within the watershed, we have to, I think the applicant has to offer them the opportunity to comment. Again, whether that watershed is actually in the water supply watershed.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't believe it was before. I think Mr. Preddy's exactly right. It's also in our regulations, I believe.
Well,
so it's 914I in the Connecticut statute section is CGS section 8-3I. And it's within an aquifer protection area or the watershed of the South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority. And I'm not clear they ever did actually, it's supposed to have filed a map with the commission showing the boundaries of the watershed. I don't know if I've ever seen that map, but we think we've been referring things, anyway.
Was this preferred? This one wasn't, it sounds like, correct?
I don't think this one was. Again, I'm not certain it actually is in the...
No, I understand that. It would be moot if they were referred and they had no comment, even if they weren't in the watershed. That's
exactly. So you just cover it in, again, it's up to the applicant, but...
that's grounds for continuing the meeting, the public hearing.
Yep, just to be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe Jim Predigan, I believe it ended at the road, but we'll make sure.
Okay. Mr. Preddy, it sounds like we may continue this, but you heard the comments from Mr. Keith and Mr. Anderson? It sounds like they had some concerns about safety, possible foot traffic going across. there are a number of, concerns about the trucks that are going up there now. And, I guess you can have parking on there now. So do you have do you have any comments or responses to that?
Jim Preddy again. I think the intent is that it would just be employees running over there, not customers. So the amount of foot traffic would be fairly limited. I do know that there has been at times some parking on the road, but again, they're kind of running out of space already. So this should alleviate that. As far as the car carriers, I don't know, Dan, can you maybe comment on that? Are you listening?
Yeah, I think he's muted.
I see a Dan there.
I think I
see a Dan. I'm not sure if that's Dan Merriam.
He should be able to unmute himself.
I don't know if he's smiling.
Dan?
He just unmuted himself.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Rabin, is that who it is?
There might be some other issue on his end. I don't know. Harry Smith, planner.
He could be having audio problems.
Okay.
I suppose that, Jim Preddy again, I suppose that if you're going to continue this to check the RWA, we could get that answer about the carriers before the next meeting.
Yeah, and then we can and get more certainty on the landscaping, perhaps, and
sure,
that we're following the same standard and so forth. And I assume we're not using invasives or and we heard comments about not using native plants.
Jim Preddy again. I believe there's language in there about only using native plants and non-invasive species.
Right. Okay. Then questions. I think then we'll continue this just to make sure all those things are covered, and perhaps you can listen to the comments again from the neighbors, and if you have any further comments, you can add them at the next meeting.
Okay.
And any questions, comments from commission members before we move on to the next item? Hearing none, then we will continue this matter, which is item number 5, this public hearing, to our May 20th meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us into item number 6, which is Emily Abruzzo and Gerald John Bodziak and Emily Abruzzo, owners, a special exception for accessory apartment at 28 Pine Tree Drive. And I understand there was a delay in getting some notices out on this one. Is that correct, Harry?
Harry Smith, town planner. Yes, the applicant didn't get the notices mailed out in time. They're aware of that, and the recommendation is rescheduled to May 20th. And,
okay.
They're aware of the deadline when they need to get the notices out. So they just were aware of it before, they just didn't make it.
Okay, so then we will table this item and reschedule the public hearing for our May 20th meeting. That's for item number 6. That brings us into item number 7, which is the Planning and Zoning Commission. We are the applicant for a zoning text amendment to concerning parking in downtown. Harry, do you want to present that proposal?
Sure, Harry Smith, town planner. I think what I'll do is share my screen. What I have up here, again, maybe just back up for a minute. This is the outgrowth of a discussion item that the commission had at previous meetings about what they may want to do with the parking requirements for restaurants in the Main Streets Overlay District, which is a special zone that extends from about Russell Street on the west side of Main Street. I think it's approximately where and I can't remember the name of the gas station there. So it does not include that. I think it's the office building just to the east. Runs along Main Street, primarily just the properties that front on Main Street, right through by the library, down into the area with the green, extends further up beyond the green, down the hill to about G Zen, the restaurant at the end there, and it extends down Montaouise, I believe about where the old Adagio restaurant was on the corner of South Main and Montaouise. So in that area, the parking requirements for restaurants are already reduced right at the moment to 25% to 75% of what would otherwise be required. The parking for retail was eliminated completely. So this proposal would reduce it further. I should have added also the 25% of the normal parking for live work units. So in red here are proposed additions. So this would allow essentially an 80% reduction for restaurants. Right now, only a 25% reduction is allowed. So we're adding in these words here, and also added in a requirement subject to compliance with the following. And this is to follow up on a discussion item at the previous meetings about desire to prevent any parking spaces that currently exist from being eliminated on private property. This would say no existing private parking spaces on the property, which is the site of the building, or tenant spaces shall be eliminated and no reduction in parking requirements shall be granted. That reduces the overall parking requirement for a property to less than the number of compliant parking.
Okay, Chuck Anders, Chair.
You're eligible for the reduction. I'm sorry?
You froze for a second, so we just lost.
Oh, okay. Must be my internet connection. So basically says that if there are existing parking spaces, even though a restaurant might be entitled to a large enough reduction to provide for their elimination, this section would prevent the elimination of those spaces. And again, the rest of the wording for the Main Streets Overlay District stays the same. Some changes to the regular requirements for parking in the section 6.5, the parking standards are also proposed. And the idea here is that this is a section I think has been used largely in the downtown, but in other areas too, to recognize that there are locations where a modification of parking requirements is justified if they are proposed for sites that historically have accommodated uses that don't comply with the current parking standards, and such historical use patterns have not created unreasonable risk to public health and safety. So for example, there are several properties in the downtown that have very limited or essentially no parking associated with them. There have been uses in the buildings for years. There's parking in the downtown, parking on street. Some municipal parking lots are available that sort of satisfies the parking demand for those properties and uses. So what is being suggested here is there are standards that the commission is asked to, and factors that the commission is asked to consider before granting a special exception under this section. And it's a little unclear, at least to me, whether all of them need to be addressed to some degree or not. Also, it almost appears to be a typo in that availability of public parking is not its own little subsection. It's under enhancement of neighborhood aesthetic quality in terms of landscaping, architectural features, and streetscape amenities, but item 4 doesn't seem to apply under that heading. So the proposal here is to say the commission only needs to find that one or more of the following factors regarding parking needs are met. So either reducing peak parking demand, these are the possible things that could be done, improvement of circulation, enhancement of neighborhood aesthetic quality, or just simply the availability of public parking. So that is the extent of the proposed changes. Again, this was sort of kicked off by a proposal to use an existing building in the town center that does not have any parking at all for it, and has been retail and office as a restaurant. So that is certainly one of the things the Plan of Conservation Development encourages, which is active street level uses. This is my staff report here I'm flipping over to. So this is on page 78 of the POCD. That's what we call it, Plan of Conservation Development. Active street level uses encouraged. So I think it's consistent with the POCD in that respect. Also, the commission, in looking at a regulation amendment, is required to find the proposed amendments are consistent with a comprehensive plan, in quotes, which is not the POCD. It's a general plan to control and direct use and development of property, blah, blah, blah. This is the case that cites that standard and consists of the zoning regulations, the zoning maps themselves, and the history of how they developed and the pattern of development created by them. We did make referrals as required legally to South Center Regional Planning Commission and the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection because the change to section 6.5 is a general standard applicable throughout town. Received response from Scroggs saying formal review is not required, and responses received from the Connecticut Department of Environmental Energy and Environmental Protection stating that the proposed amendment was found to be consistent with the Coastal Management Act. So at this point, as staff, I'd recommend approval. You need an effective date. There's a default in the regulations 16 days later, but I'm suggesting May 20th to give us a little bit extra time, and propose the finding here for the commission to consider if you choose to approve this amendment.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Thank you, Harry. Questions from, comments from commission members? Hearing none, we can open it up to the public. Evan, is there any member of the public that would like to be heard? You can raise your hands or type a note in the chat or wave. Anyone like to be heard on this?
I'd like to be heard.
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead, Emily.
Oh, okay. So I think that we were instrumental in starting at least part of this change.
Excuse me, Emily. Chuck Andrews,
yes.
Chair. Can you just identify yourself for the record? I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Emily Pennergreen, starting Pearl Wine Bar, looking at that as the next agenda item, actually, on number 8. But for the time being, just in reference to this parking change, we requested this because we'd like to start to have a business in this area, and we know that there's no parking available to us. The parking regulations were a little restrictive and limited the availability of opening a business in this area. And to that end, we requested this modification to the parking regulations. And hopefully this goes through, because given the fact that there's ample parking in the downtown area, we're hoping that this will, this modification will pass in order to, allow our modification to go through for the wine bar.
Chuck Andrews here. Thank you, Ms. Penner.
Thank you.
Are there other members of the public who would wish to comment?
Yes, I would.
May proceed. Mr. Maresca, yes, please proceed.
Perry Maresca, Chairman of Branford Economic Development. I think this is a very good idea, sound idea. There certainly is ample parking in the center of town. We have some parking areas that are for public and also on the street. There's, anytime I've been going through there, different meetings in town hall and whatnot, had never any difficulty with parking. I think we want to encourage additional traffic, people-wise, coming down, and a restaurant or wine bar such as this would definitely be a plus. I often talk about how the center of town in Branford is a restaurant mecca, and I've said it before, you probably heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. And I think it's important that we do support something like this. So thank you.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Maresca. Are there other members of the public that wish to comment? Seeing none, are there any further questions or comments by commission members? Seeing none, then I think we can close this matter as a public hearing, and this is something I think we can address after we close our public hearings. So thank you, everyone. That brings us into item number 8, which is Ms. Emily Penner Green, applicant, Scott Penner, owner, 1136, 1140 Main Street, special exception for a restaurant in downtown area. Is the applicant ready to proceed?
Absolutely. So I think you have all of our documents available, but I would be happy to share our floor plan. So our goal, for anyone who doesn't know, is to open a wine bar in the downtown area. And we bought a building, which is lovely. And we're hoping to convert it to a space that would accommodate a wine bar. To do this, obviously, takes a lot of changes. It's a modification of the space. It's a modification of the use. But we'd like to enliven the downtown area and think that this would be a great fit for Branford. And given this, we've proposed a few changes to not only the parking, but to the space itself. So I'm happy to share, if you don't mind, the floor plan, because I think everything else is actually available on the website for planning and zoning, but this itself is not. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll share that. So this is sort of a detailed vision of the building itself. So you can see that it's a long building, kind of like a, straight back. So you can see in the front, there's a windowed space. There's a bar. That in itself, of course, requires a liquor license, the permit, which we'll be submitting for once we receive approval through zoning and building. And then in the back, you have all the seating areas and the kitchen. The building itself doesn't have a lot of space outside of the actual building, so we won't be extending any of our facilities beyond that. But at this point, we will have an active kitchen, a dining area, bathrooms, and bar space. So this gives a good, perfect picture of it. There's also a basement picture if anyone's interested. So I don't know. That's pretty much it. As at this point, there's no space outside of the actual building to do outside seating. But the space itself would be just a wine bar and hopefully adding to the downtown vibe, which, we feel like would be a great fit for Branford.
Chuck and share. Well, thank you, Emily. Do you want to take a couple minutes and free advertising right here? Tell what you observe and
I would love to. Why, thank you. Yes, so we'll actually have not just wines, but we will actually do a small plate menu, and it will consist of just like charcuterie and cheese plates, oysters, but we'll also have small sort of gourmet plates, things going as basic as sliders, but going, small plate tapas style entrees. So we're not doing any large entrees. So it's the type of place where you could go where you wanted an appetizer before dinner. Then you could go to maybe Pasta Cozy and have dinner. You can come after dinner and have dessert and wine. We'll have cocktails, particularly prohibition style cocktails. I would have loved to have done a speakeasy, but I don't think it lends itself to that actually. But it's a great building, it's a great space, and we love Branford and can't wait to really fit into this scene. I think that because there's nothing like this in the area, I think it lends itself well. And I think that, especially after a pandemic where everyone's been locked up, that this building, which, it was a retail space. It's not like it was meant to be this restaurant space, but it really lends itself well to that. And I think that we're looking forward to using it for that purpose.
Thank you. And you can stop your screen share. I'm tired of looking at my face.
Oh, got it. Okay.
But in just one pitch, I assume you have some experience in this area. What kind of background do you bring to this?
Absolutely. So I have actually worked, did I stop screen sharing? No.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, there we go. So I've actually been in the restaurant business for about 15 years. And for the last 10 years, I've worked at Bar Boucher in Madison, which has in itself been a great experience. I've had experience in all areas in the front of the house and look forward to opening something in Branford that could provide that kind of, experience to people in Branford. It's not going to be the same idea. It's more small plate. I love that idea because I think that Branford doesn't have anything like that, nor does Guilford actually, or Madison. But so I do have experience in bartending, waitressing, hostessing. So yes, I think I feel really comfortable opening this in Branford.
Great. Well, Chuck and to share. Thank you, Emily. Harry, you did.
Thanks, Chuck. I hope that you'll be a VIP.
Harry, you did the staff report on this?
Yes, Harry Smith, Town Planner. I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. Okay. So I'll just start with a couple of visuals. I mean, this is the picture of the building, which we got off the internet somewhere. Without a sign on it, so I think it might actually already be a slightly different color, possibly. So I don't know about the age of this picture, but just to go back.
It's actually blue.
It's actually blue now, okay. This is off the town's GIS, so this just shows the property line here. I'm tracing with my cursor, which is essentially the footprint of the building. So it's pretty much completely covered already. So there's no parking, there's no anything, just the building and a lot for it. There's on-street parking, of course, along Main Street, particularly on the side where the property is located. There's also parking's available in the former Board of Education office building. This is a Branford Building Supply, so that's gated off. There's also a public parking lot around the corner on Hillside Avenue, which can either be accessed along the sidewalk network, or there is a way to walk through the sort of alleyways and some of these back parking lots behind some of these buildings, where this is the home restaurant, I believe, is over here somewhere. So they have this parking available for that. So you can wander through here and get down this alleyway into the restaurant, or again, over the sidewalk. So, there is parking available. Again, this is an aerial of the downtown. It's here. This is the Hillside parking lot, and you can see all the way to the parking areas, private parking areas behind it, and the parking area here for the former Board of Education building. You can see that even though there's nobody in the building, there's cars there on the lot. So I just go back to make a couple of quick comments about the application. Technically, it is a restaurant, even though it's going to be an incorporated 11-seat bar. That's its category in the zoning regulations. There is also an existing apartment on the upper floor of the building. There will be no changes to that as far as I understand it. That will remain, right? Okay, I'm getting head nodding.
Correct.
It will remain.
Okay, and this is, again, restaurant with table service. There is no site plan, no property survey, and frankly, since no changes are proposed to the site or the exterior of the building, I referenced this section of the regulations and solicited the input from the zoning enforcement officer. This section of the zoning regulations allows the zoning officer to review the application and find that he's in agreement that that there be no the submission of a site plan is not necessary for the commission to evaluate the proposal. So he's given us an email to that effect, which is in the application record. So it closes off the need to discuss that any further. There are a number of special exception criteria that are proposed in the regulations. And there are additional requirements for reducing parking requirements in section 6.5I that I referenced in the previous application. Just to look at the parking quickly for the restaurant, and I looked at the floor plan and, frankly, did a little bit of guesstimation because there are different standards for the restaurant per se versus the area adjacent to the bar. So I basically drew a rectangle around the bar and the proposed seating around the bar and excluded that. The remainder of the area available to the public, including the bathrooms, is within the 632 square feet. So the normal requirements are 1 space per 75 square feet for the restaurant and 1 space per 20 square feet for the bar area. So adding those numbers together and rounding up, which is required by the regulations, we get 22 spaces as the normal requirement. Because it's already in the main streets overlay district, it gets an automatic 25% reduction. If the changes that are currently before the commission in the prior application were further parking reductions for restaurants, so using the 80% reduction instead of the 25%, you get down to 4.4 spaces, rounding up 5. Again, you also have the ability under section 6.5I to grant a further reduction for sites that historically have accommodated uses that don't comply with the parking standards and where such historical use patterns have not created unreasonable risk to public health or safety. Historical use of the space has been office and retail. Again, there's been no parking provided on site. There's no possibility of that with the size of the property, and has not really created any unreasonable risk to the public health or safety, the understanding of staff. These uses are proposed. The office of the retail and a new development would have required 5 parking spaces outside of the main streets district. So, essentially what required parking has not been reduced by the 80%, could be subject to a further reduction under 6.5I, which would basically bring the required parking for this application down to 0. That would be the commission would need to find that these 2 items are in fact the case here, and would be looking at those factors that was cited in the previous application. Given the proposed changes, you could easily find that there's availability of public parking proximate in terms of on-street parking, as well as the municipal lot on street around the corner on Hillside Avenue. So staff would again recommend a modification to allow the restaurant uses proposed with no on-site parking could be supportable under the amended wording of 6.5I. And there is also going to be a sign as part of this that was discussed with the Town Center Revitalization Review Board. Below, that would be, subject to approval by the zoning enforcement officers, a sign permit. Any new lighting would have to be reviewed to comply with the regulations, of course. On March 10th, this application was reviewed, and the Town Center Revitalization Review Board voted to recommend it be approved as presented. So at this point, staff would recommend that it be approved. And if you decide to do that, there are findings and conditions suggested here. This is presuming that the changes to the zoning regulations in the prior application are adopted. So the first finding would be with respect to the requirements of 6.5I for reducing the otherwise applicable parking requirements. And it would be a finding that the commission believes a reduction of 5 spaces is warranted, and it should just be the word "and" instead of "sand" here. Also finds that such modifications being proposed for sites historically not accommodated uses don't comply with parking standards, and that such historical use patterns will not create any unreasonable risk to public health and safety. I think it's just "and," no "d." Spell check got the better of me here. The second finding would be that the general application is consistent with the special exception criteria. This will be the restaurant with table service. And the only condition staff is suggesting is that no additional signage or new or replacement lighting be installed without commission approval or that of its staff, whichever is appropriate according to the regulations. So that is it in a nutshell for comments.
If I might add, actually, that we did go to the town zoning board and did agree to repaint and re-roof and make it really amenable to the space that it's in. So I don't think I added that before.
The town center board. Yeah, I didn't mention that. Thank you.
Chuck Anderson here. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Emily. Are questions, comments from commission members before we open up to the public? Hearing none, does any member of the public wish to speak? I guess, Harry, if you can eliminate the screen sharing so we can see if anyone would like to comment. Please, if you'd like to comment on this application, raise your hand or wave or go in the chat.
Chuck, Fred Russo.
Fred, absolutely.
Chuck?
Yes, Fred.
I'm just curious. I'm not a drinker, but does a wine bar include alcoholic beverages beyond wine, such as liquor, beer? I'm just curious. I'm not familiar with how a wine bar operates.
I can answer that
yes.
if you don't mind. We would have actually cocktails and beer as well. So it would be
please.
A full alcohol permit, not just wine, but there would be cocktails and beer as well.
Thank you. Okay. Chuck Anderson here. Anything else, Fred, or anyone else?
That's it.
Thank you.
Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. I see a gentleman raising his hand.
My name is Scott Penner. I am one of the owners. I actually have a partner on this property, and Emily's my sister. But I just wanted to point out that when we bought the property, we were originally intending to put, another office in there, a mortgage or real estate company, and that would be relatively easy to do. But as a resident in the town, and raising 6 kids in this town and knowing a lot of people through them, I think this is a far better use for the property and has excited a lot of people. So we just have this one limitation that we're hoping we can get by.
Chuck Anderson here. Thank you, Mr. Penner. Evan, are there other members of the public that wish to comment?
Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. I do not see anyone at this time, but please, any members of the public that would like to participate, use the raise your hand function next to your name on the participant list. I do not see anyone additional that would like to participate.
Okay, thank you, Evan. Any further comments from the applicant or commission members or staff?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Just to get back to liquor for a moment, my understanding is it'll be a restaurant liquor permit, which provides and allows a full bar. So.
True, Harry. Thank you for that. Yes, it does. And Emily Penner-Green, I just want to add, I appreciate you guys hearing this motion, especially because it does also require modifications on your parking regulations. So we appreciate this in every way.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Ms. Penner-Green. So anything else? If not, then we'll close this matter as a public hearing. And again, this is something I think we can take up later after we take up the other items. So thank you. That brings us then to our, that closes our public hearings for this evening. Brings us into our minutes. And I understand that there are minutes from our April 1st and April 15th meeting. And I understand, Harry, that we're still want to review those and tweak those. Is that correct?
Harry Smith, Town Planner, that is correct.
Thank you, Chuck Anderson, Chair. So that brings us in, so we won't vote on any minutes this evening. Correspondence. Is there any correspondence, Harry?
Again, Harry Smith, Town Planner. We have 2 pieces of correspondence. One, actually, they're both with respect to cell towers. One is with respect to an existing tower at 50 Maple Street, which is Branford Landing, the marina there next to the brewery, behind where the pine trees are in the brewery parking lot. Folks may be aware, attached to the smokestack is a cell tower array. So the proposal is to modify that. They're replacing 3 antenna and adding a couple of new antenna. Yeah, we also did receive correspondence about existing cell tower at 21 Acorn Road. And this is the replacement of 9 existing antennas. Proposals to modify, include hardware regarding 5G capabilities. I finally received correspondence, which I forwarded to the commission. Again, today, I'm not sure it was previously forwarded to you, from Kate Galambos regarding businesses in the IG2 zone around exit 56. So I believe all commissioners got a copy of that. So that is all the correspondence we have.
Okay, Chuck and share. Thank you, Harry. So then at this point, let's go back to our public hearing items that we can act on. The first one was public hearings number 1 and 2 that concerned the Nest Shoreline special exception for grading and the special exception modification. And I think Evan had done the staff report for that. Perhaps, Evan, you can pull that up.
Evan Browning, Assistant Town Planner. I'm pulling that up right now. I apologize for the delay. All right, here you are.
Okay, so your recommendations for this, and I believe they're acceptable to the applicant. So we see there's 2 conditions, 1A and 1B, and then 2. And I think everyone sees them. I think you reviewed them earlier. The first one is about the prior to the issuance of the zoning permit, basically the review and modifications for the lighting, condition A, and the landscaping B, and just indicating that the other existing conditions remain in effect. Any questions from anyone?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. If you want to address the comment about native plantings and invasive planting,
yes.
I can suggest some additional wording if you like.
Sure. What's your suggestion here?
You could, at the end of 1B, add the following: to preferably include native plants and not include invasive plants.
Okay, we can say that. Is that in our regulations already?
I think invasive plants, landscape architects, I believe, and Marcy can speak to this better than I think they're included by state law from using invasive plants on the state invasive plant list. Isn't that correct? Marcy's here. Native plantings, I don't believe are addressed per se in our regulations.
Okay.
We've been encouraging that, and I think many applicants have been doing that. And we do have had some discussions with folks about changing our regs to address that more strongly.
Okay. So what's the sentence you're suggesting here?
I'm suggesting to add the end of 1B to preferably include native plants and not include invasive plants.
Okay. 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 So we'll add that. And will you review those when it comes in?
Yeah, they're reviewed by staff because they need to be reviewed anyway.
Right.
Okay. Modify them for the site triangles and so forth. Okay,
then does any questions from anyone? Not then, does someone want to make a motion to approve this application with the conditions set forth in the staff report that are in front of us with the, as amended by Harry, about the preferably native plants and not including and excluding invasive plants?
John Luft's your commissioner. I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion made by John. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
and Joe Chadwick seconds. And I think everyone is voting tonight, right? So it's John, Joe, Fred, Marcy, and myself. Or wait a minute, is that, or no, who's up? Because
we are missing,
wait a minute.
Joe
we're missing Joe Vaiuso.
Yeah, Massimo is up.
Okay, so Massimo is up. Okay. So Massimo, you're up. So it's going to be John, Joe, Marcy, Massimo, and myself. Okay, so there's been a motion made by John and seconded by Joe. All those in favor? John Lust, are you in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick, are you in favor?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Marcy, are you in favor?
Marcy's in favor.
Massimo, are you in favor?
Massimo's in favor.
And chair is also in favor, so that application is approved.
And that was both
applications? Yes. Actually, we should probably take a separate vote on the second one.
Right.
Okay, is there, what, is it the same, findings and conditions for both of them?
I think the conditions really speak to the second application, and I don't think the first application really requires any conditions.
Okay, so what we just approved was the second application.
Yes. The second application, right.
Okay, so the first application we can approve without conditions, is that right? Is that the recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the first application is the special exception for grading, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, does someone want to make a motion to approve the special exception for grading application as presented, no conditions?
John Lust, I'll make that motion again.
Motion made by John. Is there a second?
Chadwick will second again for consistency.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Any further discussion? All in favor? John, are you in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick, you in favor?
Chadwick in the affirmative.
Marcy, are you in favor?
Marcy's in favor.
Massimo?
Massimo's in favor.
And chair is also in favor. So the special exception for grading is approved. That's application number one. Okay, that brings us then to our, I believe, our zoning text amendment. That was item number 7. The zoning amendments to sections 5.10, the Main Street Overlay District, and section 6.5, parking. Harry, do you want to pull up any of the recommendations from your staff report so we have in front of us?
Sure. So you should be able to see the end of my staff report. I would suggest you make a finding that the zoning regulation amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan and that the commission has considered the plan of conservation and development in its decision to approve the amendment and set an effective date of May 20th, 2021.
Okay. So, and I guess we can have some discussion. It is a text amendment. It's, you know, it was sponsored by the commission in response to, you know, requests from the public. Seems to make sense. There's a lot of available downtown parking, and you know, it's a good thing. And the only danger was we didn't want people to give away their parking. So the possible danger of this thing, I think we remedied through the text, and it's allowed us to go there. So what do other people think?
John Lust, I think it's a good plan for the downtown. We've discussed it as a commission, and I think we do have sufficient parking available. And this particular site has worked without any parking for years. So I mean, I don't see a problem with it. I think it's a nice addition to the town.
Great. That's right.
Massimo Lori here. I also feel it's a great thing to do for this particular location. I think you know, for this particular type of business also, it's really something that the downtown area thrives on and helps other businesses. So I commend really everyone for sort of being, expanding the horizons and getting things done and changing things up when they need to be changed up, for certain reasons. So hats off to everybody for being creative about this and trying to make downtown more successful. So I'm in agreement with it 100%. I think it's a great thing for the town of Branford.
Chuck and Chair, thank you, Massimo. Anyone else? Any other comments from commission members? If not, then does someone want to make a motion to approve the zoning text amendment with the effective date of May 20th, 2021, with the finding as set forth in the staff report of consistency with the comprehensive plan and also consistency with the plan of conservation and development?
Chadwick will make that motion.
Motion made by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
Marcy will second it.
Marcy seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? John?
John Lust in favor.
Mr. Chadwick?
Chadwick in the affirmative.
Marcy?
Marcy in favor.
Massimo?
Massimo in favor.
And chair's also in favor. So the text is adopted with the effective date of May 20th. So then that brings us then to the item number 8, which is the Emily Green Penner, the restaurant wine bar at 1136 1040 Main Street. And excuse me.
Oh, sorry. No, I was listening.
Okay, sorry. So we have Harry. Did you have any conditions for that? Do you have the staff report for that, or I think we have to have an effective date. Maybe the day after the text amendment comes in or something. So if you want to pull up the staff report.
Yeah, Harry Smith, Town Planner. So I would suggest that the commission approve the application with the 2 findings proposed here, as well as the single condition, and set an effective date of May 21st.
Okay. Okay, are there any questions from anyone? If not, does someone want to make a motion to approve the application with the 2 findings set forth in the staff report and also the condition also set forth in the staff report with an effective date of May 21st?
Marcy Paluzzi will make that motion.
Motion made by Marcy. Is there a second?
Massimo Ligori.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Massimo.
Okay, Massimo Ligori seconds. That
okay, we'll give it to Massimo. Any further discussion? All in favor? John, are you in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
See?
Uh-oh.
Did I hear Marcy? I see.
Oh, I didn't hear my name. Marcy's in favor. You blanked out for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Massimo?
Massimo's in favor.
And chair is also in favor. So the application is approved as of May 21st. Congratulations. Welcome to town. We hope it works out.
Yay. Thank you all so much. We're so excited to do this.
This will be great. So that brings us now to old business. And item number 1 is a special exception for an accessory apartment. We have a public hearing scheduled for our next meeting on May 20th. Item number 2 is that's a matter, a special exception, coastal site plan, open space residential development. That's something that we need. I believe we're sending it out to our consultant to review. That will need to be scheduled for a public hearing at some point. Gary, do you have any update on that? I guess you can get rid of this get rid of the screen sharing, Harry.
Oh, sorry. There. I am hoping for May 20th, again, Harry Smith, Town Planner. I need to finalize that date with my consultant, so I'm going to have a discussion with them hopefully tomorrow.
Okay. So that brings us to new business. Item number 1 is the Branford elected. It looks like items number 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all special exceptions for grading, which suggests that we're over-regulating. We may want to look at it. I mean, they look like kind of minor things, Harry. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, Harry Smith, Town Planner, discussion for another day, but we are looking at that. So that's likely to be brought back to you for discussion at a future meeting.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
But these all require public hearings for grading. Yeah.
And we will fit them in as we can. Again, some of this might depend on whether we can continue to post public hearings on the town website or whether we need to go back and put them in the newspaper, which, delays things a little bit. But we'll get back to you with dates, probably first meeting in June, but we'll just see how that goes.
Okay. And then item number 5 looks like a special exception that we need to schedule a public hearing for that, or?
I think the standing agreement that you and I get together could apply. It's the last one in the door, but again, we'll try and get done in June, pending new business. So we'll do the best we can do with that as well.
Okay. Okay, that brings us into other business. First is the discussion of possible changes in the zoning regulations, residential solar.
Harry Smith, Town Planner, maybe I'll just say a couple of quick words. We have Daniel Rabin here with us and Diana McCarthy-Burkery, who is the town's sustainability manager. The three of us have had a meeting and we've talked about the need and possibility of how to word proposed change to the zoning regulations to concretely address allowing solar energy, especially small scale systems for primary residential, into the regulations as an allowed accessory use. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel and Diana. We'll make you co-host, so you're going to unmute yourself here. Give me a second. And okay, so both be able to unmute yourself and present any comments you have.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Harry, and thank you to the commission for hearing our item this evening. As Harry mentioned, my name is Diana McCarthy-Burkery, and I am staff for the town's Clean Energy Ad Hoc Committee. And part of what they focus on is energy efficiency and building performance and driving down energy use, and also alternative energy production opportunities around town towards their clean energy goals. So the town has been participating in a program called Soul Smart, which Dan will tell you about. We've already achieved our bronze, and now we're working towards our silver award. And with that is a little more legwork, bringing the town ordinances up to a certain level just to provide access to folks. So it doesn't mandate anything. It just is to put something down on paper, again, to make renewable energy more accessible. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dan from the Energy Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you to the commission for hearing us. There's probably a question, why do we need an ordinance change for this? And we look at it that there are basically three reasons. The first is to keep Branford an attractive place for people who are interested in renewable energy. This will streamline the process for planning and zoning approval of their projects. For people who are not interested in solar energy or whose property or finances or whatever is not appropriate for a solar project, it means absolutely nothing. There's no government compulsion. There's no there's no impingement on residents' liberties or anything like that. So it's really a way for people who are interested to make Branford more attractive to them. As Diana mentioned, we've been designated as a bronze SolSmart community, and this ordinance change is the last piece that we need to progress to the silver level. And we know that this is something that Jamie Cosgrove is interested in, and we have to give a shout out to Harry Smith and also to Tony Sinicola, who have been very supportive. Another reason that we'd like to do this is it supports the town's goals of a 100% renewable electricity by the year 2040. And this is not something that Branford invented. It's in the energy plan, but it exactly mirrors what is in the Connecticut goals. So we see this ordinance change as supporting the town and Connecticut's energy goals. And the third reason is that it fits into a portfolio of projects that the Clean Energy Committee has been doing, which includes the Heat Smart, meaning the home energy solutions and bringing information about solar and about heat pumps to the public, the residential. We've started a Solar for All program to bring low-cost solar energy to low and moderate income homes. And we've also started a business energy efficiency program. And the whole point of all this effort is to not only make Branford a more friendly place for renewable energy, but also to save money for the residents and the businesses. That's really all I have to say about our programs, except that when different businesses are going through the process of their planning and coming before this commission, we would encourage them quite strongly to be in touch with us, because we've been working with Eversource and United Illuminating to find incentives and different programs that can really benefit both the energy efficiency and the finances of different businesses in Branford. So if anybody is in the planning stages, especially, the utilities want to talk to you about improving that process. So once again, thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I know Diana and I would be happy to try to address them.
Chuck Anders, Chair. You referenced an ordinance change. So is there a proposal a specific proposal to change a zoning amendment change? I wasn't sure.
There is a specific proposal, but it's not ready for review by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And as soon as it's been drafted, it will be submitted in the proper way. This is only a heads up, an introduction to our desire.
Okay. And the subject matter of the proposal will be because to allow solar panels either as roof mounted or accessory structures or what? Or is it mainly residential, or what's the sort of scope of what you're talking about? Is it commercial? Is it, or do you know?
So go ahead, Dan.
No, go ahead, Diana. That's fine.
Okay. So we're still working out the finer details. We're working closely with Harry on that. Sorry, Diane McCarthy-Burkery, Sustainability Manager for the town. We're still working closely with Harry on that. We've been given several examples from other communities that have participated in the program. Some of them are quite lengthy. We don't necessarily think all of that applies to Branford. The primary focus is, just making it accessible for everyone within the town. So it's not just residential, it's commercial, nonprofit, anybody who has an appropriate and feasible site for it, making it, putting it down on paper to make it accessible. Does that answer your question? Sure.
Yeah, it sounds like you're addressing it, but it sounds like it's mainly residential. But I don't know. I don't hear my.
Yeah, I don't even know if we're being very specific about residential versus commercial. Just saying
okay.
Rooftop, roof mounted. There are two options for ground mounted. There's a fixed structure, and then there's one, if you ever go down to the solar farm in town, they have they're mounted on pole structures, and they're mechanical dual axis tracking ones. So there's really three different varieties, just making them all available. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't think our regulations specifically address either roof mounted, although they're all over the place now. They're probably just part of the building, but I think a separate structures of ground mounted solar panels, I don't think are addressed. So that'd be something we address, whether it's commercial or residential. Okay, just trying to get a heads up as a feel as to what it is that we should expect to be looking at. Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions from any commission members?
Yeah, I'm Joe Chadwick speaking. I'm kind of curious on the extent of what you're regulating. I'm not hostile to any of this concept. I'm an ex-hippie dome builder and actually did solar houses back when they were still not fashionable. But is this strictly focused on devices and equipment as opposed to solar access? I know in some jurisdictions they have regulations as far as one lot preventing south light from hitting another lot. There are allowances made for buildings to set back to get a little more height to pick up a little more sun. So I'm just wondering, if just broadly speaking, what is the sort of the scope of this? Is it strictly related to gadgets and devices that you plop on a building, or does it really have to do with things that affect building form?
So I think that's, okay, I'm not on mute. Sorry, Diana McCarthy-Berkery, town staff. I think that's open for discussion. We felt that we wanted to engage the commission in the conversation first, without coming at you with something that was very elaborate, or was placing restrictions on other properties. Certainly, there's some legislation out in California where if you have solar and your neighbor plants, like a fast growing tree to the south of it, that then within a few years cast shade on your solar, and that in your solar was at first, then they say, okay, you have to top off these trees every so often to make sure that they're not obstructing the sunlight. I don't even think we were going that far down the pathway. We were looking more, and maybe Harry can talk to this also, looking more, just sort of a blanket statement about, access and availability for specific types of structures.
Again, Harry Smith, town planner. I think we're actually talking about gadgets and equipment at this point. And I think as Mr. Rabin mentioned, basically just making sure there's no barrier for someone who wants to install something like that on their property from doing so. And my understanding, again, it would be accessory use. So it'd be related to the needs of the business and the property, which would be the principal use. So a house, you're talking about a solar to support the needs of the house, not a solar farm on a property zone residential. So you're talking about small scale devices and installations related to the needs of the use already on the property. Does that make sense? Am I have that right, folks?
Yes, that's exactly right. And we want to make it easier for residents who, for example, want to buy an electric car the whole process of putting solar up won't be as burdensome. Oh, sorry, Dan Rabin, Clean Energy Committee.
It does, Harry Smith, town planner guy, it does bring up a couple of questions about, accessory buildings are precluded from being in setbacks and are limited in height and limited in size. So if you're talking about a solar array, like a ground mounted piece of equipment, you probably want to think about the allowed height. Would it be falling within the 15 feet? Likely, I would think would be the way to go. And hopefully that works for the clean energy folks. And that it's, not so close to somebody else's property that it's, sort of looming over their fence and, while they have their pool there or something like that, it's limited as other accessory uses and structures are limited would be my guess as to how we might want to consider proceeding.
Would it include things like alleviating or giving relief to the, say, building height or structure height if you put a solar array on a roof and it exceeds a roof height?
Yeah, it might for a certain kind of roof. Just anecdotally, my mother-in-law has an installation for hot water from, I think, the 70s, and it exceeds the flat roof she has at her house, but I don't know if the whole thing exceeds 35 feet. But that would be something I think we'd have to talk about whether, because of the, the need for an additional 5, 6, whatever feet above a flat roof to install this, whether that's, something the commission would want to consider throwing in the package. So an existing building that's already at 35 feet with a flat roof could benefit from, a regulation like this.
I think there's got to be something iterative about this because, we have some of the highest wind load characteristics of, in Connecticut being on the shoreline. So mounting these things will not be a trivial matter, even though some people tend to just kind of toss them up on the roof. I don't know how many of them actually go through a correct building code assessment as far as wind uplift and all that. So, I don't think we're going to have the right answer right away, but I'm just curious on how we're going to start walking around the big circle to finally end up in the middle.
Hopefully not. Yeah, I think Diana's raising her hand, so I'm going to...
Sorry, thanks, Harry. Diana McCarthy, Mercury Town staff. It's a really good point about wind load and structural engineering design. So all of the systems that go through the Connecticut Solar Program that exists now, and anything that's going to qualify for federal tax credits, all of these have to be approved through the building department. They have to be, have engineering designs drawn, and all of those have to meet whatever the wind and snow load regulations are for each structure. So they definitely have to go through that. And regarding the tilting of, the 1970s solar thermal panels that Harry referenced, typically, previously, in many years, you would have to, if you had an east-west roof, you would have to tilt your panels towards south to try to optimize the amount of sunlight that they get, since the sun travels to the south of us. But now with the power efficiencies that they have, the microinverters, the optimizers, which are gadgets on the back of panels that make power production easier, that's really no longer a requirement to have to tilt them up. So typically on pitched roofs, they will be flat. If you are looking at a flat roof, generally you're talking about a commercial building, and you would only put them like a single panel row height, going horizontally. And so that height is, I would say, under 3 feet, and generally about, a parapet, or a roof wall. It doesn't go too much above that. And it's probably about a 10 to 15 degree tilt.
Chuck Candace here. Thank you. Thank you, Diana. Harry, anything else? Or Diana? Or
I have nothing else. I see Mr. Cook waving his hand. This isn't really a public, and it would be subject to a public hearing if it's a regulation change, just to put that out there. But I just wanted to point out that Mr. Cook is waving his hand.
Yeah, Wayne, it isn't a public hearing. You want to say something quickly, you can say it. You know, we're not acting on anything tonight, but go ahead, let Wayne talk for a little bit. And I suppose we do it for Wayne, anyone else here. But again, who wants to speak? Wayne, quickly, go ahead.
I'm not going to take all night, but clearly this is a discussion, and I don't think it precludes the public from participating in it.
It's not a public hearing, Wayne. Chuck Anderson sharing, but please make your comments.
Well, my comment is this, and I'm not going to become, I don't know. You know, Chuck, I get a little bit disturbed when public has something to say, and for some reason, there's always some obstacle to go over it. Now, I know it's not a public hearing. I've been around enough of your, meetings to know that. But you're having an open discussion. You're setting the framework of something. And if a member of the public wants to participate in that, I don't see what harm it does. And I don't see why you have to limit them to any sort of, reasonable amount of time. I mean, I have things to say. I mean, this group came in here, they're not participating in the public hearing because there is no public hearing. That said, what I want to say is this, and I'd like to take a moment to do it. This group, this Clean Energy Committee, I've been at a number of their meetings, and I said to them directly, they are extremely biased. In my opinion, they are not to be trusted. They tried to sneak a energy plan through the Board of Selectmen that nobody else in the whole town saw. If we didn't stop it at the Board of Selectmen, it would still be there. They consider it to be a fully acknowledged plan, whereas it didn't get any further than the draft plan. My point is this, that you have to keep an eye on these things. And I know you guys are all busy, but something like this, they push solar, they push wind, but they don't really want to consider anything else. And not only that, but there are several people that want to be on this group, a couple of them from the RTM, and they refuse them membership. Why? Because their perspectives differ, because they don't buy into the entire man-made global warming perspective, that they think it might be a combination of the two, man-made, also natural. This is a very, very biased committee that you're dealing with. Now, I could go on, but you're going to accuse me of conspiracy theories, but good luck with that, because I don't think anyone's ever caught me in a conspiracy theory in the last 12 years. If you did, I don't know about it. But my point is this, whenever you talk to this clean energy group or the coastal vulnerability group, know exactly who you're talking to. This is exactly, and again, no inflammatory, intentions here, but this is the green cult that I'm talking about. These are the people that see one thing, Branford is green and nothing else matters. And that's who you're talking to right now. And I will take on the whole commission, the whole committee, but they don't let you talk. They just mute you. So, go to one of their meetings and see how open and transparent and accountable it is. So what they tell you, and again, I want to move forward with all these projects, and I have some, positive things to say about some of the things they're doing, and I did say it, but don't take whatever they say as gospel, because I can assure you that it's not, and I can assure you, and I'll close with this last statement, that it's very much stemming from their own far left environmental agenda. And again, I got nothing against the far left, but that's just where it comes from.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook. There will be, before any regulation changes are adopted, there will be a public hearing, and there won't be any limits on how long you can speak. So appreciate your comments. With that, let's go on to the next one, which is interpretation of confirmation of section 4.8H and section 2.2. Harry, do you want to run over that with us?
Sure. Harry Smith, Town Planner. Just wanted to actually bring this back to the commission to confirm a previous interpretation the commission made back in 2019. This has to do with the restricted business zone, the BR zone. And back in 2019, and I pulled the minutes out here, in February 7th, And maybe I'll just share my screen here quickly. There was a discussion about definition of dwelling, single-family dwelling and two-family dwelling. My understanding is the BR zone allows several different uses on a property, unlike residential zones, which allow only one principal use per property. In this particular case, it was a grandfather two-family and a small outbuilding, and owner wanted to make it to a single-family home. And that would be 3 dwelling units on the property. There's this portion of the BR zoning district regulations that limits multi-unit dwellings, 3 and more, to properties that have 120,000 square feet. But this isn't a multi-family dwelling. It's a two-family dwelling and a single-family dwelling. So, and we looked, I'll go back here just to refresh everyone's memory. The definitions section, we have single-family dwelling, design occupied dwelling unit for one family, two family, 2 dwelling units in one building. And I don't know if I copied the one for multi-family dwelling is more than 3 units in a single building. So I think the definition led the commission to the conclusion that you could, in the BR zone, without having to have 120,000 square feet, have a two-family dwelling in one structure and a single-family dwelling in another structure, and that would be in compliance with the BR zone regulations. This was applied specifically to a property on the other side of Cedar Street from the library. There was as it was mentioned here, a two-family house that existed previously and an outbuilding that was converted to a single family. So there's a similar property being proposed for this almost identical arrangement. There's an existing building on this property, but it's an old dilapidated commercial building. So the proposal is to take down that building and have a brand new two-family that would require special exception approval. And then an additional building that would be a garage on the first floor and an apartment unit, single-family dwelling on this outbuilding. So I just wanted to check with the commission, make sure that this interpretation still stands, and that even though it's not a grandfather property and this two-family in this other property, that's, almost an identical situation, that I can go ahead and tell the applicant, go ahead and apply for the two-family special exception approval, and you can get a single-family approval in a unit over a garage on an outbuilding. And that's allowed in this property, which doesn't have 120,000 square feet of land.
Harry, it sounds like this is the way we've interpreted it in the past. And do you think our interpretation makes sense?
I do.
Okay. Does anyone disagree? Then I'm fine continuing with the same interpretation.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
I'm fine with continuing it.
Yeah.
John Lust, I'm fine with that, Chuck.
Okay. Anyone else?
The others.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can interpret that as consensus?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. We have a number of bonds.
The first one would be Todd's Hill Road, number 93.
Gary, I think you can stop the screen sharing as well.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. So the first bond request is to establish a driveway apron bond and landscaping, grading, and seating for a new single-family home at 93 Todd's Hill Road, Lot 9. Our outgoing zoning enforcement officer, Mr. Daniel Brennan, has provided us with a memorandum dated April 26th, Recommend approval of the bond in the amount of $3,800 for driveway apron, landscape grading, and seating.
Okay, someone want to make a motion to establish the bond as recommended by our zoning enforcement officer?
John Lust, so moved.
Motion made by John. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second by Joe. Further discussion? All in favor? John in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe?
Chadwick in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
Massimo? Massimo is shaking your head. You're muted, Massimo.
He's muted.
Yeah.
Massimo's in favor. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Chair's also in favor. Okay, what's the next one?
The next one is for 155 Cherry Hill Road, Lot 14. It's an almost identical situation. The bond amount in this case is $3,635, again, for driveway apron, landscape grading, and seating. And it's a subject of a memorandum dated April 26 from Daniel Brennan, CEO, to the commission recommending approval of that amount for those items.
Okay, so I want to make a motion to establish a bond in accordance with that recommendation.
John Lust, so moved again.
So moved by John. Is there a second? Somebody?
Massimo Ligori seconds it.
Massimo second. For discussion, all in favor, John?
John Lust in favor.
Joe?
Chadwick in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
Massimo?
Massimo's in favor.
And chair's also in favor. Next item is exit 56 discussion. Harry, can you bring us up to date?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Just wanted to give you a quick update. I was approached at Planning and Zoning Office by Perry Maresca, Chair of the Economic Development Commission, who is looking to possibly establish an ad hoc committee to kind of further some discussion that started in the context of designating the old Costco PDD, if you will, to IG2. And I believe he is in attendance right now, but the gist was to have a couple of interested town residents on the ad hoc committee, as well as a member or two of the EDC itself, and possibly a member or two of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I'll stop there.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Harry. I think that, we did discuss that, some follow-up on the planning perspective. I think it probably makes some sense to get some sort of committee going. And I think Mr. Maresca had some suggestions that probably make sense. I think you want to make it representative if you can. And I think I'm trying to think some of the people that spoke at the hearing may be interested. And I know there was an attorney for one of the property owners too, Diane Whitney, who does stuff. It'd be great to have some expertise from there. You don't have too many, but I think you want to have some cross representations, including the property owners. And I don't know if anyone from this committee from this commission wants to be on that too. So what I'm going to suggest is it sounds like that's the way we're going to go. We're going to form something. There will be some ad hoc committee. You don't want it too big, but you want it, I think, sort of representative, different group, difference. It doesn't have to be it's not a form, it's not even part of this commission. But if you are interested in that, let Harry know and we can figure it out. We can't have more than two, otherwise it's part of the commission. You have a quorum. So it would be a maximum of 2 people from this commission, but that's where we are. So my recommendation is think about that, give Harry some thought, and we'll continue the discussion. And Harry, you can, be sort of the focus and have comments. You talk to Harry. Does that sound okay to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, great. Wayne, what do you got?
Well, I can guarantee it's about exit 56. I agree with the approach that the Economic Development Chairman is bringing. I like to say that I'd like to participate on the committee, but to make it fair, I'd like to have, any of the opposition to development up there also participate. I think you need that level of perspective. I mean, all respect to planning and zoning people, all respect to EDC people, certain things, but it in a general sense, which you have to. But we know, at least I can speak for myself and Charlie in particular, we know this area really well, and we can speak to it. And we're certainly willing to listen to other perspectives that, may differ from ours. But I think you need that level. I'd also like to share with the committee that, in the last time since we've met, we've gone out and we've met with 3 really high-end developers and said to them, you got 75 acres up here with within reason flexible zoning. What do you envision this can be in terms of a gateway? And that's their homework assignment, so to speak. I mean, it seems that, and they're fascinated by it because it's a really, really interesting area to do. It has a lot of potential, probably because it remains so pristine, to be honest with you. So I think here it is, and I'm not going to go on and on about this because I said a lot last time, but, we're willing to move forward, completely forward for reasons that, and in the good interest and in the best interest of the town. But we're also going to have to be very candid about these discussions in terms of, because there's a lot of different agendas here, a lot of different perspectives, but the bottom line is I do believe, and I really believe this, that if we get the right people, the town cooperates, planning and zoning cooperates, economic development continues to take a leadership role, I think we'd be real surprised what we can do up here. And it could be a point of pride for the whole community for decades to come. I think we can do it. I really do. So that's what we're shooting for. And I appreciate the opportunity to form a committee and serve on it in all the best ways and see what happens.
Thank you, Wayne. Those I agree. Those are good comments. Various representations, I agree it should be represented, including those who have other points of views, and I like the idea of having developers with ideas as well. So I appreciate your comments. So from our point of view, and it sounds like Mr. Maresca is sort of heading that up, and Harry, you can be in touch with that. And then, but just from our commission members, if you're interested in serving on this, we need some participation. We should have participation. So over the next couple of weeks before our next meeting, why don't you, I'd say if you're interested, get in touch with Harry and we'll try to coordinate that and try to move this, help on our end and move forward. So thank you, everyone. With that, item number 6 is planner's report. Harry, do you have anything else?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Just wanted to give everyone a heads up. This is a situation that's somewhat in flux, but you may or may not be aware that the executive orders that allow the commission to operate and continue to meet in this fashion, conduct business this fashion remotely through Zoom, are due to expire on May 20th. My understanding is there is a bill in the legislature that would essentially provide for some kind of hybrid meeting format going forward. Still being worked on. I think it's massaged a bit already in the committee meetings and so forth. The latest version I saw took effect in terms of the provisions that would affect our commission meetings on July 1st. So I don't know how our little 1-month gap is going to be addressed yet. I think, there are certainly members of the Bar Association that I understand are still working on this in conjunction with the governor's staff. I think that's continuing. So it's an evolving situation. We'll certainly, hopefully know more by the next meeting, but the next meeting will be the last one, as far as I know, that will be authorized to have in this format unless some other changes or the legislature takes some other action, but they haven't yet. So we're working on looking ahead to the future, how to conduct meetings, and Evan's been looking at some of the ways some of the other boards are already operating sort of in a hybrid way. We'll report back, and which we're looking at talking to IT already and how to support some kind of hybrid meeting format that would allow possibly the public to participate remotely. I'd suggest at this point that the commission strongly consider probably all attending in person. I know there've been various feelings about that in the past to date, but the situation is evolving. I don't know how many folks are vaccinated. That plays into it as well. But I think we should definitely talk about it at the next meeting more, and hopefully we will know more then, and we can sort of have a better idea how to move forward.
Great. Thank you, Harry. So
Can I
one more remote meeting and then maybe back in person, we'll see.
Can I ask one question of the town planner in regard to his remarks? It seems to me in all the meetings that I go to that one of the neatest features is screen sharing. And, it opens it up. I remember, you guys remember, used to bring in 3,000 posters at every meeting. And it would be, I think, an interesting hybrid approach to be able to somehow keep that concept or the ability to screen share, even though a certain part of the meeting was live. I don't know if you can do that, but I think that to lose the screen sharing feature would be a disadvantage.
Yeah, I tend to agree. If someone's participating remotely and they want to present something, I think you certainly want the ability to allow that person to do that. Again, how it's going to play out in the legislation, I don't exactly know, but I would imagine that would be part of it because it's something, as you say, a lot of people have used, and it's been helpful.
Right. Yeah, the hybrid concept is, I'd like to see how it's fleshed out. It's interesting. So anything else, Harry?
Not at the moment.
Okay, great. Then I think that's it for our agenda.
Oh, we should announce that we have hired a part-time zoning enforcement officer. His name is John Usatsky. I would actually encourage the commission to formally appoint him as a zoning enforcement officer. You could do that at your next meeting. Mr. Brennan will be continuing on a part-time capacity. In the past, I believe, have nominated or designated Evan Brining as an assistant zoning enforcement officer who could sign permits and so forth. And I believe a few years ago, you designated me as well, sort of as third string quarterback, and you have nobody else being present. So Mr. Rusatsky has been up to, I believe, last week, the zoning enforcement officer in the town of Stratford for about 30 years. So he is well qualified, well experienced, and is actually leaving the job Daniel Brennan is taking. So there'd be a good opportunity for the two of them to help each other. They're basically swapping jobs, so to speak. So I'll leave it to you whether you want to designate Mr. Rusatsky tonight or
Chuck Anders, Chair, what do you recommend, Harry? Would you like us to get it done? We'll just add it to the agenda.
I would like you to get it done because I think he's well qualified. And
let's do it. So is there a motion to add to the agenda the appointment of what's his name?
John Rusatsky.
John Rusatsky as a zoning enforcement officer?
Yes.
Is it temporary or just zoning enforcement officer?
Temporary.
Okay. Is there a motion made to appoint John Rusatsky as a temporary zoning, add that item to the agenda to appoint John Rusatsky as a zoning enforcement officer?
Chadwick moves to make the adjustment to the agenda.
Joe made a motion to add that to the agenda. Is there a second?
John Lust, a second.
Okay, John second. Any further discussion? All in favor, John?
John Lust in favor.
Joe?
Chadwick in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy in favor, sorry.
Massimo?
Massimo's in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. Okay, someone then want to make a motion then to appoint Mr.
John Rusatsky.
John Rusatsky as the temporary zoning enforcement officer.
So moved, John Lust.
Motion made by John. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Joe seconds. Further discussion? All in favor, John?
John Lust in favor.
Joe?
Chadwick in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy in favor.
Massimo?
Massimo in favor.
Chair's also in favor. Okay, so he's appointed. Anything else, Harry?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that's it for our agenda then. So I make a motion to adjourn.
All moved. John Lust.
Okay, motion made. For second.
Incredible.
Who?
Can I ask a quick question? Is there any zone on our property now?
Yes, you're back to IG2.
You voted to put us back on IG2?
Yes, that was the amendment. That's what we voted on. That's what you spoke about last week.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, you bet. Okay, is there the motion? John made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second by Chadwick. Is there further discussion? All in favor? John, are you in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe?
Chadwick, yes.
Marcy? Marcy, you're muted.
Marcy.
Just do a thumbs up will do. There we go. All right.
And Massimo.
Massimo's in favor.
Favorite chair is also in favor. Say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Yep.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.